The nomination of Brett M. Kavanaugh of Maryland to be an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States is confirmed.
The votes are in, and the Senate just hours ago confirmed Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court.
He's got the kind of character that deserves to be on the Supreme Court.
That narrow vote sparking protests from D.C. to right here in New Orleans.
I'm very disappointed and I'm very, very angry.
Reaction from both sides on the future of our nation's highest court. The news at 6 starts right now.
Live. Breaking. This is WDSU News at 6.
A live look at the Supreme Court right now, where just minutes ago, Brett Kavanaugh was officially sworn in as an Associate Justice. That ceremony just hours after the Senate voted to confirm his nomination to the nation's highest court. But as you can see, protests are still going on in Washington and across the country. Now, Bill Cassidy and John Kennedy were among the 50 senators voting in favor of that confirmation. Kennedy actually inside for Kavanaugh's private swearing-in ceremony. And Kavanaugh's confirmation comes on the heels of an FBI investigation into sexual assault allegations against him, in which the agency said it found no evidence to corroborate those claims. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the news at 6. I'm Juliana Mazza. Team coverage tonight with WDSU's Jennifer Crockett in New Orleans. But first, let's go to Sally Kidd in Washington with the latest on the Senate's vote.
Juliana, Judge Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation brings to an end an ugly nomination process that had divided the nation for weeks. From the steps of the Capitol,
Shame on you!
to the U.S. Supreme Court, protesters demanded to be heard. Even inside the Senate chamber, where the interruptions did not stop a vote that fell mostly along party lines.
The ayes are 50. The nays are 48.
Senators voting to confirm Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the High Court.
Judge Brett Kavanaugh is among the very best our nation has to offer. He will make the Senate and the country proud.
Dogged by sexual misconduct allegations he vehemently denied, Kavanaugh defended himself during an emotional and contentious hearing last week. Christine Blasey Ford recounting her claim that a drunk Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her 36 years ago. The FBI found no corroborating evidence. Republicans and Democrats decrying the ugly process, blaming each other for it.
Chew good people up, spit them out, no problem. All in the day's work.
If you want to take me out on an issue, so be it. Leave my family and my kids alone.
Kavanaugh's confirmation of victory for President Trump.
He's just an extraordinary person, a great talent, and I think he's going to make us all very proud.
Now, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia was the lone Democrat to vote in support of Kavanaugh's confirmation. He is facing a tough re-election in a state President Trump won by a landslide in 2016. In Washington, Sally Kidd, WDSU News.
Sally, thanks. And happening now, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy defending his vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. As we mentioned, he was actually inside that private swearing-in ceremony less than an hour ago. Kennedy sent out this statement saying Kavanaugh is, quote, whip smart, and he believes that the role of a judge is to determine what the law is and not what the law ought to be. Senator Bill Cassidy also reacting tonight and calling the vote a victory.
Two important things happened today. A highly qualified jurist became Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And secondly, the Senate established that smear campaigns based upon uncorroborated allegations would not be allowed to destroy somebody and their ability to serve our country.
Here at home, about 20 protesters gathered in Lafayette Square to voice their concerns about Kavanaugh's confirmation. And some say that could cast a shadow on his decisions as a Supreme Court justice. WDSU Jennifer Crockett is live at Lafayette Square with that story for us. Jennifer.
The men and women out here today said they are concerned about Justice Kavanaugh's ability to be fair and about his character. As you just heard, that's the exact opposite of what Louisiana's two senators said before casting their votes to confirm him. The divide does not end there. The protesters brought up landmark cases that they fear could be overturned now that the Supreme Court is solidly conservative. WDSU political analyst Dr. Silas Lee said that people feel so strongly either for or against Kavanaugh, that those opinions will likely spill over to his judgments for years to come.
He will have to decide cases that impact women, cases that impact voting rights, cases that impact housing, health care, and a woman's right to choose. So yes, depending on his decision, a lot of his decisions will be judged from a very slanted perspective, because now people have formed pretty much an ironclad opinion of him, and they're going to question how unbiased and how open-minded he was in writing or voting for a particular case.
The protesters who were out here today said they will not allow the conversation to end here. They are vowing to carry their commitments to the polls in November. Reporting live in Lafayette Square, I'm Jennifer Crockett, WDSU News.
All right, Jennifer, thanks. And next weekend, the Me Too movement will be in New Orleans, holding an event to discuss the Kavanaugh confirmation. They'll also share stories from sexual assault survivors in solidarity with Kavanaugh's accusers. That event scheduled to take place at the 12-mile limit next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And on our website, you'll find more details on Brett Kavanaugh and reaction from the U.S. Senate. That's all on WDSU.com. New at 6, volunteers cleaning out catch basins as the Gulf Coast prepares for potential tropical development. And WDSU meteorologist Daniel Graves has details in your forecast. Daniel, what's the latest?
Well, what we're seeing is an area of disturbance as it moves toward the north into the Gulf of Mexico. We will likely see a tropical depression or storm forming as we go into early next week. Let's talk about the latest, and you can see the environment it's going to be moving into, the Gulf of Mexico, is relatively quiet. Conditions will be more favorable for tropical development as it gets closer toward the north. Right now, dealing with some wind shear, a lot of clouds, and scattered shower activity, just kind of disorganized, but it's starting to get its act together. And so as it continues to move toward the north, it's really close to the Yucatan, so that could help to keep it weaker before it moves out into the open waters. It's called Potential Tropical Cyclone 14. The reason for that is tropical storm force conditions are possible across land areas before it's actually designated as a tropical storm. So that's really what that means, but still not yet a tropical depression or storm. We do have a forecast track, though. Takes it north into the Gulf of Mexico Monday through Tuesday, and then the current forecast putting the center of it through the Florida Panhandle sometime Wednesday afternoon with max winds of 70 miles per hour. Now notice the cone can shift anywhere from the west to the east, and once we get that center of circulation, models will continue to update with that track. So this not set in stone, but right now looks good for southeast Louisiana because we would be on the west side of this system. We can look at some forecast models. Again, a 90% chance for tropical development in the next 3 to 5 days, but probably in the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll see that tropical depression status. These models also agreeing with that forecast track, keeping it off toward the east, but a lot can change between now and then. We'll talk more about that forecast, plus what you can expect locally in just a bit.
All right, Daniel, thanks. In Baton Rouge, a memorial service was held today for LSU basketball player Wade Sims. Sims was shot and killed on September 28th. Authorities say he was defending a friend outside of a fraternity party when he was shot. He was entering his 3rd season with the LSU basketball team. That funeral service was held at Healing Place Church in Baton Rouge. Counseling services have been provided by the school for students and for faculty. The wife of a Slidell officer who was injured in a motorcycle accident says their family is taking it day by day. Officer Jason Seal was hurt while on duty, escorting a funeral procession last Tuesday. Seal's wife says the family is going through an extremely difficult time and they're asking for your continued prayers. She says there are far too many unknowns when it comes to Seal's condition, so the family is just hoping for the best. Here in New Orleans, a woman is dead after being shot overnight in the east. It happened around 12:30 this morning on Bunker Hill Road. Police say the woman was shot in the chest and later died at the hospital. Right now, police are working to identify any possible suspects. A Chicago police officer is facing decades in prison after being convicted of murder. Tonight, the jury standing by their decision to convict Officer Jason Van Dyke in the shooting death of Laquan McDonald. The 2014 shooting was captured on police dash cam video with no audio. Van Dyke told investigators he fired in self-defense after McDonald lunged at him with a knife. Jurors say they did not find his testimony to be credible.
His testimony was incredible to me. I felt like he was trying to remember stuff that he said that maybe wasn't true, and he wanted to make sure he didn't trip himself up. So I didn't really feel his testimony was credible.
And jurors say the verdict was not about race, rather about right and wrong. Van Dyke faces a maximum of 20 years in prison for second-degree murder and 6 to 30 years for each of the 16 aggravated battery convictions. The children of former NFL linebacker Junior Seau have settled a lawsuit with the NFL. He killed himself in 2012 and was diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a brain disease caused by repeated head trauma. His family filed a wrongful death suit against the NFL in March 2013. The terms of that settlement are unknown. He played 20 seasons in the NFL. He was 43 years old when he died. Still ahead at 6, the First Lady wrapping up her trip to Africa with a tour of Egypt. How the U.S. is helping the country preserve its historical sites while adding to its tourism and economy. Plus, lots of fall festivals in New Orleans and one in favor of New Orleans' favorite pastry. A look at the Beignet Fest and other festivals going on all around the city. We'll be right back.